Teresa Keegan, our town attorney, Dan Shopik, our clerk, Phyllis Collier, our town treasurer, Anthony Musto, and our director of public works, George Estrada. And you'll also see First Selectman Vicky Tesoro and Kathleen McGannon on the call as well. If you would all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a quick moment of silence, I'd appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody impacted by COVID-19 who are sick or suffering or have lost family members. Please keep them in your thoughts. Tonight we have a fairly short agenda and we'll look for public comment first.
There are members of the public who wish to speak. You can press the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, and if you're on the phone, you can press *9.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised, so we'll move on. Attorney Musto, Town Treasurer's report. How are you, sir? Wait.
Just had to hit unmute. Good. How are you, Madam Chair?
I'm well, thank you. What you got for us, sir?
2020 is almost over. Can't come soon enough.
Do you have any good news for us?
Yes, the refinancing has been great. The rates are extremely low, so the Trumbull has been the happy beneficiary of that on that end of it. As far as the investments go, there is none. All of the accounts, the interest rates are down. They are, people's lowered them to 15 basis points. So I had to give them a call and see what they could do. We cannot purchase anything anywhere that gives any sort of decent return. It is an interest rate free environment out there. So on that side of things, we are not doing what we expected, what we'd hoped, certainly not what we did last year. Again, the refinancing is sort of the bright silver lining in that cloud. So you have my report. Those of you who have the agenda, same one as always, but it's just really in a holding pattern. Most of the money that was in, you can see in Infinex, for example, most of the money that was in there has been just transferred to Peoples, because as the CDs cash out, there's no point in leaving the money there because they can't find any CDs to purchase. And that's the sort of thing that's going on all over the place. So we'll look forward to 2021.
Anybody have any questions? All right, well, I guess it could be worse news, so.
Yeah, it's still 2020, Madam Chair.
Yeah, we have a few more weeks to go.
A few more weeks. So I will, if no one has any questions, I'll just hop off and leave you to your meeting.
I do, but
Elaine?
I don't see how to raise my hand. I'm sorry, I'm working off an iPad.
You're waving, you're good.
I'm wave. Hi, Anthony.
Hi.
Can you tell us how much we refunded? How much bonding we were able to refund?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I'm sorry. Maria probably does.
Okay.
We just signed them, was it Tuesday, I believe? So it's very recent.
Tuesday we did the short-term borrowing for the Hardy property, which was $7,050,000, and that was at a rate of 0.34%, which was really good. But that was for the Hardy property. I don't have that in front of me. The rates
Maria,
were very low.
Why would we short-term property when the price is set and the deal is done?
Well, it was a telephone sale. In order to do a telephone sale, it has to be a short-term borrowing. We would have to go through a whole bonding process, official statement, rating meetings, if we wanted to do a full bond at this point.
Okay.
So the quick way to turn around was a sale, phone sale.
Thank you.
All right,
Is there-
guys, enjoy.
Bye, Anthony.
Happy holidays, Anthony.
You too.
Maria, is there a downside to that, to doing the short term? Before you close, to do it that way? Oh, wait, hold on, Maria.
The rates could go up. Obviously, when we go in permanent borrow in September or August, the rates could go up, obviously, because, we don't know where they're going. But right now, the notes are 0.34%. So that was good we could go up to 18 months with them before we fully bond them. It was just a quick turnaround with the funding, because otherwise we would have to go through a whole new process. We would have come up with a new official statement, rating agency meetings. Not only would we take the process would take longer, we would need the funds right away. So the general fund would have to put out the money first before we would borrow the money.
Okay.
So the rates could go up. That's the downside.
And when do you hope to close for it?
Dan Shopik's,
I'll answer that.
the settlement of the bonds will be next Thursday, the 17th. I'm not sure what day that is. I think it's Thursday, the 17th. And I think the closing is probably the 18th.
Yes. It's Dan Shopik. We expect to close by the next Friday.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, thank you.
Laney, Madam Chair, if I could, it's First Selectman Tesoro. Just, Maria, if you could, though, should we see the rates starting to creep up, we can always decide to bond sooner than 9 months or whatever, correct?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure. I believe so, but I will look into it. I mean, our advisor does look at where the rates are, and he keeps a watch on that. And obviously, we will do that if it's advantageous to the town to do so. But
We did get an excellent
I think it's
rate.
9 months. I think we have to do 9 months.
Right. If we have to
least
wait
right.
9 months, you think?
I'm sorry.
Can you check that for us when you have a chance? Because
Yeah.
I thought when we discussed this, there was a possibility of, if we sort of see the creep, that we could do something sooner than that. But in any case, we had what excellent rate that we got last week at that sale, at 0.34%.
Anything else? All right. Moving on to the auditor's report. Therese.
Hi. This month's report is entitled Town of Trumbull Department of Public Works Operational Review. We think of Public Works as an umbrella, so to speak, under which multiple departments roll up, including a Public Works Department, highway, building and facilities maintenance, fleet maintenance, transfer station, and Public Works also provides oversight to the town's engineering and WPCA functions. Beginning with the Public Works umbrella, page 5 of your report provides 2 years headcount and payroll data at the top and a schedule of 4 years of budget and actual at the bottom of the page, showing the annual budget and actual expenditures consistently approach $10 million. Historic budget and actual detail is available to you in the appendix. Page 6 of your report provides total Public Works fixed asset data. Per the Finance Department, as of 6/30/20, fixed assets totaled $116 million with a book value of $60 million. As discussed in prior audits and in finding number 6, we're still not able to explain all the numbers in the fixed asset schedules, but finance continues to work to improve processes and data accuracy. Under the Public Works umbrella is a small Public Works department. Budget versus actual is presented on page 7 of your report. It primarily it is primarily comprised of streetlight expenses as well as salaries for 2 current employees and funds to hire a full-time director of operations. Next, we address the highway department, beginning on page 7. Page 9 attempts to verify the current highway headcount based on responsibilities and hours associated with the department, as estimated on page 8. The analysis shows that as of 6/30/20, the department was appropriately manned, but that could change with one snowstorm. Going back to page 8, we see that the variance in snow removal hours between 2009 and 2020 is almost 10,000 man-hours. This concern is discussed in finding number 5.
Can I interrupt for a second? This is Marty Isaac.
Hi,
I'm
Marty.
curious on the leaf pickup, why it had a 1,200 hour variance. Any ideas what, I thought that would be more consistent. Do we know why that's the case?
Leaf pickup. I can't really say. George, do you know that?
George, can I make
I
a
do.
suggestion? It's possible in 2018, we used more external manpower, and lately we've not been doing that. So could that be the variance?
It could very well be part of that. I can tell you that this year we have no outside workforce coming in to augment our troops as a calculated decision just to try to preserve the safety of our men for the plowing season. Because God forbid we brought in any of those labor companies and they compromised the health of just a couple of our drivers, it would put us into a very difficult position. So that definitely could be part of it.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Under highway key accounting functions on page 9, please note that highway personnel collect, reconcile, and deposit funds for the transfer station. I highlight this point as finding number 2 relates to those processes. The report moves on to Building and Facilities Department on page 10. The department is currently in a period of transition due to the loss of the director and 1 custodian, in addition to the increased cleaning and sanitizing requirements due to COVID. The department is currently functioning well because the town's administration, the department head, and the remaining custodians have worked very cooperatively with each other and with an outside cleaning service. Next, the report moves to fleet maintenance on page 11. The department is responsible for the repair and maintenance of town-owned vehicles and equipment, excluding that of the police and Board of Ed. The department at times provides billable services to Tasha Knowles and WPCA. The report details the department's operations on page 11, fleet composition on page 12, and details costs on page 12 and 13. Finding number 6 relates to fleet maintenance from an accounting perspective. And finally, the report moves us to the transfer station beginning on page 14.
Can I interrupt again? For a
Sure.
moment? This is Marty Isaac again. On the vehicle count, I guess when I'm looking at the totals on the vehicle count, it seems the townwide vehicles from 2007 to 19 went from 81 down to 72. Right, and the police increased from 44 to 61, and Board of Ed from 26 to 33. Can you comment a bit about why that occurred, or is that in finding? So 44, I guess by 16 it went to 57 to 61. Is that consistent with the police department growth? It just surprised me.
I can't really say that much about 2007, Marty, because that was way before me, but it is possible that there are more policemen now than there were then. And in fact, since I've been here, they have hired 3 more people, which they had for those special resource officers, I think they're called. So there's the 3 between 16 and 19. That just about covers that.
Yeah, I guess that was just a significant, I didn't know the department had grown so big from the 44 cars to 61 over the, 12 years or whatever it is. And I guess, again, I'm surprised on the Board of Ed going from 26 cars to 33 cars. I know we'll have a chance to talk to the Board of Ed in the future why they have so many cars. But it was just a little surprising on that side too.
Although, Marty, also, I will tell you that they're not all cars.
Yeah, cars, truck,
Not-
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of the stuff that they have is somewhat specialized, like they have, like an SUV that does something special, like they hang on the side, stuff like that, that maybe they didn't have in the past.
George?
Yes, what I can share is we are currently, we've gathered all of the information from the different agencies in town, and scrap vehicles are going to auction. And the police department had a number of those. Apparently the town has not done this in some time. So I think there will be a purging, and I would imagine you'll see a reduction in the actual numbers there. Because I did see on that list quite a few from the police department.
Okay, so those are not all active cars. That's total cars. I didn't know we had scrap in there, so we just never did that recently.
I
Okay,
believe.
thank you for that.
I believe.
Why wouldn't they have purged those cars? Why do they keep them for scrap so long?
Well,
We're gonna kind of get there, but
Okay.
because they move them down to the highway department, and then, the fleet guys have to go and inspect that. They need to do a inspection of the condition of the car so that they can either auction it or scrap it. And they don't always have the manpower available to spend to inspect the cars, so they get behind on them.
Okay. Yes, George?
I could tell you that since I've been here, I've been adamant, let's clean this up and try to get that moving. But it really, this year has been very difficult in assigning the personnel to do the inspections that Therese just mentioned. You have to document VIN numbers, photograph each of the pieces of equipment and vehicles that are going. So there's quite a bit entailed in the deaccession of that equipment. It's not just as simple as just pulling the trigger and getting rid of it.
And do we have a rough count of how many vehicles you think that entails right now?
I don't think we have an up-to-date list of what's in that pile.
It's being worked through right now, but I would imagine it's going to be in the 10 to 20 range. And
They're not all police.
that's going to be
They're-
town-wide, because some of those, even golf course has a vehicle that is there. We have them from throughout the different agencies.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question on that? Sorry, Therese, for the interruption.
That's okay, no problem. I'm glad to have them. Okay, so we're at the transfer station. The transfer station is responsible for the collection and disposition of waste for Trumbull, Easton, and Monroe. Pages 15 through 17 of the report details the transfer station operations, cost, billing, and use of a special agency account, which Easton, Trumbull, and Monroe contribute to on a monthly basis. The account is used to pay for joint cost and includes a provision for upcoming capital expenditures. As of 6/30/20, the balance in the account was $371,000, with plans that require approximately $215,000 in the near future, including software, slab repair, and $155,000 for a backup generator. Because finding number 3 relates to the station cost and revenue analysis, we'll discuss it briefly here from page 17 of your report. At the point being that per the financial analysis on page 18, station costs continue to rise. At the time of the cost review in 2016, Trumbull's expense exceeded $1.6 million. Since then, Trumbull's cost has risen by over 30%. Process flows of operations and billing are available in the last 2 pages of the appendix, and a comparison to charges of adjacent towns is presented on page 27 of the appendix. The topic is discussed again in finding number 3. That concludes the summary of the report. Section 3 is findings and recommendations, some of which relate to prior audits, which are presented on page 24 of your report. So going to finding number 1, page 5 provides the information of all appointed or hired employees who directly report or roll up under the Director of Public Works. As presented in the 2019 Highway Operational Review, no overtime was reviewed to test the reporting and approval hierarchy. At that time, certain employees were able to self-approve their time, even some who were eligible for overtime. Also, some employee time is approved by other personnel rather than by their supervisor. These issues are not isolated to this department, but they have not been resolved. The recommendation is that employee time may be reviewed by someone other than the direct report, but should ultimately be approved by the direct supervisor or delegated to a knowledgeable employee of a tier higher than the reporting employee. And the finance response was that the previous HR director was working on this prior to his departure. The status should be reviewed by HR and overtime should be updated as needed. I thought it was done, but when I went and checked it, it's not done, but I'm not sure of the detail behind that. So we really need to look at the whole picture.
Anybody have a question on this finding?
Yes, Madam Chair, I do. Hi,
Michael.
Michael Barker, Board of Finance. Thanks, Therese, for this. Do you have a sense of how much overtime was self-approved on an annual basis?
I think that only a few people who were eligible for overtime were able to self-approve. It was not across the board.
Yeah.
So you had, I only know of 2 people. The overtime was not excessive, but it was consistent.
Okay. And you're satisfied that the individuals that are self-approving this overtime are in fact eligible for the overtime that they're approving?
Yeah, they were eligible for the overtime.
It would be great to know how much, but it sounds like it's not an area of concern in terms of the amount, just the process, right?
Yeah, I just, I think people should not be self-approving at all, and it just kind of puts the icing on the cake.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, any other questions? Finding number 2. As presented in 2 prior audits, highway personnel prepared deposits when time permits, frequently only monthly. A review of the receipts journal and associated detail maintained by the finance department determined that a total of $256,000 was deposited on 12 separate dates. A sample of 42 checks were traced from check date to deposit date, and the range of timing was from 5 to 34 days. This detail is available for review in the appendix, page 26. And what I did there is on one side of the page, it shows by check date. And then on the right-hand side, I sorted it by days to deposit. So you can see that some of them are 34, which there might have been, a couple of days for mailing, which I couldn't really determine. I just went from date to date. So the recommendation is, in keeping with the town's cash policy, highway personnel should prepare deposits each time they accumulate more than $500 in cash, but never to hold funds for longer than 7 calendar days. It is further recommended, while we're on the topic of cash receipts for the transfer station, that they use a credit card clearing account rather than posting the deposits directly, because it highlights issues and aids in reconciliation process of credit cards. So management response was that the highway personnel were under the mistaken impression that the cash receipts policy related only to cash, as in currency. And after they got the credit card machine, they said, well, we don't have that much cash. So the policy actually discusses any type of receipt, cash being more scrutinized, but never should we hold any receipt more than 7 days. So now that they understand that, they are going to do it. Finding number 3. Prior audits recommended Trumbull consider offsetting some portion of the town's costs by charging users and/or by implementing tipping fees for the residential haulers at the transfer station. Such implementation would also reduce a significant risk of residential haulers mixing loads with out-of-town pickups or with commercial waste. Some haulers carry commercial and residential loads or carry for Trumbull as well as for other towns. Options were offered to incentivize haulers to mitigate the impact of fees being passed to homeowners, and those are listed on the report on the findings. The recommendation is that the transfer station operational expenses have increased significantly in recent years, driven primarily by the decrease in revenue of recyclables and the increase in contractual fees and services. It is just recommended that the town reconsider updating the transfer station cost structure detailed in the appendix, page 27. Public Works Director is to discuss this with the Trumbull administration. There is a schedule in the appendix that shows what nearby towns are doing, what they charge for, and how they go about it in their transfer stations. Some of them have gone so far as to require a permit, which they will not issue to you unless your car taxes are up to date. So they're getting pretty sophisticated with how they run the transfer stations, because for all the towns, it is a huge expense to the town. So they've gotten a little creative, but that schedule is out there. The only thing I have to say about it is that Norwalk, who in 2016, when I did this review, was charging residential haulers a tipping fee of $85, but I probably called them 5 times and I never got a call back. So I put it in there because it just shows that they probably still are. I never heard of anybody taking the fee off, but on the other hand, it's highlighted because I couldn't confirm it. Do you have any questions on that? Okay. Finding number 4. As presented in the transfer station cost and process review of April 2016, the bookkeeping process performed by highway personnel remains highly manual and time consuming. A time study was prepared for the report and is included with the finding. Even with the addition of credit card machine at the site, the transfer of information, bookkeeping, and reconciliation time would be saved with the implementation of software. Also, as discussed in the prior report, the town may wish to consider identifying resident vehicles, possibly with a sticker, to ease the flow at the station. The recommendation is that the town consider software capable of capturing incoming and outgoing tonnage by town, by type, by carrier. We received a estimate some time ago from one vendor, and he came in just under $10,000. I'm not sure where that would be today, but George is pursuing this and will continue to do so.
Just an observation. This is Marty. I mean, we do have town stickers for the park, so it seems like you could double dip the sticker for the park, and for that, you should be able to work that out, you would imagine.
Yeah, it's come up a few times in the past. It never really took off, Marty, for one reason or another, is that, you know, do you give a household one sticker, or a sticker for the car and a sticker for the truck? And what if they give away a sticker? And we've just never gotten past the questions on it.
Okay.
But I do think
Well-
it's a good idea. And a lot of times, I mean, you're driving down the street and people have the sticker on their car. So other towns that I talk to as far as transfer station do use one sticker for multiple purposes, including the transfer station.
Elaine?
And the stickers we get now have the license plate number, so you can't put it on a different car.
I think, well, that would go with maybe the software, Elaine,
Yeah.
that would read it, because I don't think that one station attendant could read that.
Well,
I don't think it'd be saving him any time if he had to go over to every car and look at the sticker and make sure it matched.
Therese, at this time though, aren't the people at the transfer station checking licenses?
They check the driver's license, yeah.
Okay.
Just to see what town they're from.
Vinny? Nope, hold on, Vin.
You're on mute.
Unmute, there we go. You can use a barcode and put it on the sticker and have them use a gun and just look at the barcode as they come in. I mean, there's a lot of things today that you could do to make it easier to keep an eye on.
I think we ought to do something.
Christine?
Yeah, on that topic,
Hold on, Christine, you muted yourself.
sorry. If you were to implement something to smooth the traffic flow, you'd have to make it work for the other towns that use it, and maybe that
Yeah.
kind of compliance might be tough.
Yeah, you're muted again. Maria, years ago, didn't they do some with a barcode and people complained about it? You're on mute.
No, I don't recall they ever did that.
Yeah.
George has his hand up as well.
Not since I've been there.
They're afraid that reading the barcode might disturb their child's health if the child was, say, in the back seat and got flashed by the barcode reader.
George?
I still want to address that.
We've been exploring technology, especially to try to streamline the operations there. And we hope to have a proposal within the next couple of months because we're working with a couple of different vendors and a consultant. Everything from barcode to license plate recognition, all of that is on the table right now, just seeing what technologies exist. And we also will be reaching out to some of the other operations in the region and try to go visit those and just see, not recreate the wheel, see what is really working and how they're doing that and try to bring back best practices.
Yeah, there's some pretty great software available at this point in time.
Sorry,
Okay.
just Michael Barker, one quick follow-up for Mr. Estrada. Is that something that you would plan to present as part of your budget request?
It's in the special revenue account.
I see, so it would come out of the net. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, finding number 5. As previously discussed in this report, as it relates to the highway responsibilities, consideration must be given to the availability and staffing requirements during peak activities or emergencies. Recommendation was that, similar to the concept of on-call vendors, the department may wish to consider vetting and acclimating specific groups who could be called upon to assist in times of need, such as drivers during storms. When I talked to George about this, he said, "I'm already doing it. The Public Works Director has bid for trucks with plows, sanders, and drivers on an as-needed COVID contingency basis in accordance with union guidelines." Do you have anything more to say about that, George?
This has been the year of the contingency, so we really have tried to anticipate anything where we would be affected by the pandemic. So the most recent example is I met with the union and just for full disclosure with them right up front so that they would understand exactly what we were doing, and we are not looking to replace any of the bargaining unit work that's taking place, and they were in full support that we would have a method of backfilling should any of them be compromised due to illness. So we did not receive the number of responses that we had hoped for. We're about to award. We received, I believe it was only 2, and only one of those really has the equipment that we had specifically asked for. We're going to lock that in, and that's one of the contingency plans, and we'll begin discussions with other possible support mechanisms out there. The most important thing is just public safety. So obviously, being prepared to be able to respond at any time when we have a weather event is no excuses. We have to be prepared.
Thank you, George. Finding number 6. As reported in 2 previous audits, fixed asset lists were maintained by individual departments, by the finance department, and by Merit Insurance, but the lists did not agree to each other or to the general ledger. It was previously recommended that physical inventory should be performed on a regular basis, and a single, accurate listing of fixed assets should be maintained, preferably a munis. The town provides updates to Merit Insurance on an annual basis. A single point of contact should be responsible for all vehicles and equipment information. At this point in time, it is difficult to know who is responsible for certain specific fixed asset operational and reporting functions. There's no current list of vehicles scheduled for auction, which should have been taken out of service. Submission of the Town of Trumbull municipal plate listing assignments due to the Department of Motor Vehicles each January for December and each July for June has not been filed since February 19th of 2020. The finance response, the finance department is currently working on merging all vehicle lists into one and reconciled to munis, updating the vehicle list to submit to Department of Motor Vehicles by January 2021, and restarting the process of scheduling vehicles for auction.
Reese, just a quick question. Sorry, it's Michael Barker again. With regard to this, the filing for the municipal plate listing, it looks like we're only probably one behind. And is there an individual that is responsible for that?
Yes, I have a staff person that handles that function. Due to COVID, we were working remotely most of the time, so it was very difficult to handle that.
Yeah, it
So,
didn't seem like we were far behind, so I just wondered.
Yeah.
So just because of COVID.
And not only that, we had staffing issues. That the particular person only started in November, so it's been tough.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
George? I have a question for you about procedure at the transfer station. I know at one time we talked about they're changing some traffic signals to make it safer on Saturdays, especially when the line gets very long. But when the trucks go into way, the cars back up, have they thought about making a second lane there for turning?
Yes, very good question. We actually are about 70 to 80% complete in design. The first selectman has taken an application to MetroCog, the regional planning agency, for support of a redesign and reconstruction with queuing lanes off of the road in front of the transfer station. That will not completely resolve all of the issues that we have there, because we have a pinch point at the culvert just down the street. So that will be phase 2, where we will come in and request again, hopefully request and gain support from the planning agency to expand that all the way out past Amazon and create a better automotive flow there. As part of this, something that we are evaluating, which goes hand in hand with some of the questions that you have had, we're looking at the reconfiguration to queue cars off the road, but also the reconfiguration coming onto the site at the scale house, and possibly repositioning that in such a way that it'll allow for, with technology, people to be able to go through much quicker if they're identified. If whether it's a barcode or a plate recognition, they'd be able to almost drive through it, basically a red light, green light. And on the other side would be a scale where anyone that needs to be weighed, they go into that separate line in queue on the property. So those are reconfiguration improvements that we're exploring right now that will also allow us to expand some of the recycling opportunities that are out there now, such as textile recycling. But currently, the way that the site is configured, it's very difficult to add additional things into that site. So hopefully it'll be a more comprehensive improvement of the flow.
Could I just say one more thing about the transfer station? Some towns, I know in the past we were worried about if we charged tipping, if we increased the tipping fees, that the haulers would just push that down. But in some towns, what they did is they said, okay, you don't have to pay us a tipping fee, but you have to go directly to Bridgeport. And so it cuts down on the traffic, it cuts down on the loads, and the haulers have the choice whether they want to sit in line or just drop off at the transfer station. So I only mention it as it's something to consider if we're going to look at the transfer station structure at all. Because if you take the haulers out of the traffic, it eases the traffic as well. Just saying.
I would think it also eases the wear and tear on the facility.
Yeah, well, if we're not charging a tipping fee, Elaine, and we have to haul that out, so we have to take it, we have to weigh it, we have to bill them, we have to sort it, we have to pay to take it, pay City Carding to haul it down to Bridgeport, and then we have to pay Bridgeport to take it. So, I mean, the costs can grow exponentially. So it's just something to consider. Okay, finding number 7. The town charter relates to the main, there's section 12.b.ii of the town charter relates to the maintenance of all buildings and equipment used or owned by the town, except the buildings and equipment used by the Board of Ed. The Department of Public Works may maintain and care for school buildings and grounds, but only if and to the extent and for the period requested by the Board of Ed and approved by town council, provided the costs are charged against the Board of Ed's appropriations. As presented in a 2019 audit, 92% of the $219,000 paid to by the town to Tarantino Landscaping was for work performed for the Board of Ed. It was recommended that this and other contracts that include both town and Board of Ed items should be reviewed for compliance with the town charter. These contracts could be separated between the town and Board of Ed. The town could communicate with the Board of Ed and to expect their costs to be charged to them, or the town could include the cost in the annual in-kind reporting prepared by Finance. Per the prior audit, Finance stated they were not aware of the provision in the charter, but going forward, we will put it in the annual in-kind report. Okay, that's the end of the report.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions about the report?
I have one.
Elaine?
Trying to go back to it you had a listing. Sorry, I lost the page. Of buildings. It's on page 6, and I'm a little confused. Are these are just town buildings and not Board of Ed, correct?
These,
How did we pick them? Like Tashua School's
Elaine,
on there.
are out of Munis, and this is the data. If you filter by Public Works, this is what you get.
Okay, so what happened to the counseling center?
Is that under Public Works?
Well, I would think so. They
I
maintain
don't
all
think-
the buildings. I mean, they maintain Town Hall and the Helen Plum building.
You know, I can tell you this report, Munis is not very user-friendly. The fixed asset module is very hard to deal with, and we have an issue every year.
Okay,
But these are basic just locations. I think Therese was looking at specifically Public Works, and Counseling Center will probably be a location of Counseling Center. It all depends on the category, location that they were put in. And highway, if highway was in charge of that project, counseling center could be part of that highway, $27 million.
And why would Tashua School be on
Right,
here?
and not the others.
Yeah, I was gonna research that. We didn't get a chance to look at that one, but
Okay.
that came up as a question.
And the Historical Society building is owned by the town?
I'll have to look back at that.
There's
I'm
a,
not sure
no,
what
there's
that-
a $1.99 lease that the Historical Society pays to the town.
Okay.
I have this
Town does own it.
former board member of the Historical Society.
Okay. It's just odd. Some things are here, some are not.
I'll find out.
Yeah,
what-
Elaine, Maria and I will work on it, but this is
Okay.
what's in Munis right now.
Okay. Thank you. Sure.
Therese, at some point, can you update that list for us? Just as a
Fixed
follow-up?
asset,
I'm sorry?
a fixed asset?
Yeah, by the location, so that if if one school
I
is on
would
it,
love to, Lanny. I would love to give you an accurate list.
but if one school is considered part of it, then they should all be on that list, I would assume.
I agree. I mean, we were a little baffled by what was in Munis.
It's
but-
just the location. There's different fields in Munis and it's just hard to get the information from Munis, but we will try.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, thank you.
George, do you have any comments, anything?
No, I have no further comment, Madam Chair.
I have to say that it looks like that a lot of the oversight has really changed a little bit, that you're really making some great changes. So we look forward to kind of following that to see how it goes this year.
Thank you.
I gotta say, George was absolutely wonderful to work with.
That's to be expected.
Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right, if there's no other questions about that, we'll move on to the rules of procedure, which are very exciting. Moving, they're in our agenda. They immediately follow the auditor's report. If you'd all had a chance to take a look at it, I don't believe there are any changes in the rules of procedure.
Laney, a question with regard, Paul Timpanelli here, a question with regard to number 7. Either I'm missing something or it doesn't read well. If a
Okay,
regular member is absent and does not designate an alternate to act, the majority of the regular members, chairman of the Board of Finance may designate. What does that mean? Is it the majority of regular members or is it the chairman?
no, if somebody is absent
Right?
and you didn't call one of the alternates and say, can you vote for me? I guess I get to pick. I think that's the way I read that.
And why does
Dan,
it say the
would that be
majority?
correct, sir?
Again.
No, it still doesn't read right.
It doesn't read right. It's gotta be one or the other. He's right.
Right.
If you just take out the majority regular members and just put the chairman,
Yeah, then that works.
that'll work.
Or you could just insert or between the two.
Yeah, but or becomes very confusing.
Yes.
Right.
Which are you
Right.
gonna do?
Wait, would it be that way? Would it
It is
happen
now.
or if the chairman was the one who was absent?
Good, yeah.
Better be the vice
It's
chair.
just-
Well, then the vice chair would act as the chair, so the vice chair then becomes the chair. I
Okay,
think it's too confusing if you leave it a majority. I think it's the role of the chair.
Needs to be cleaned up.
I think either you tell the chair who you want to be your alternate or you leave it to the chair to do.
so,
Right. It's simple. It's the simplest way to do it.
so how about this? Let's do this. I think I need a motion to accept and a second, and then we can make this a discussion and amend it, correct? Do I have to
Could do
do it
that.
that way?
Yes, you can do it that way. Motion to accept the second and then there's discussion.
Okay, Elaine, thank you for motioning. Paul, thank
You're
you for seconding.
You're welcome.
That made that easy,
Now Paul has an amendment.
right? So he would like to amend rule number 7. Now, technically, do I need to read all of these rules?
No, you published them. They were on our agenda. They were on the website.
Okay, as long as everybody's in agreement with that. So Paul has an amendment. He'd like to amend rule number 7, striking the words majority of the regular members from the first sentence.
Second.
Yes, that would be the preference.
And
Majority
second,
of the regular members strike those words.
Okay, so Paul made the motion and Elaine seconded. All those in favor of amending rule number 7 as stated, signify by raising your hand for me. Michael, Paul, Steve, Elaine, Marty, and me. That's 6-0. That passes. So we strike the words majority of the regular members. Does anybody else see anything that they have an issue with?
Nope.
Okay. The good news is we will make our 10 o'clock curfew tonight. Okay. If there's no other questions concerning the rules of procedures, all those in favor of accepting the rules of procedure with the amendment to question 7, to rule number 7 as stated, signify by raising your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion passes 6-0. So that takes care of that. The rules of procedure have been accepted. That takes us on to the Board of Finance transfers, intradepartmental transfers less than $1,000. The policy and procedure follows the rules. And the purpose of this is to promote departmental efficiency and allows the Director of Finance to make intradepartmental transfers of less than $1,000 without board approval. And then we accept all those at the end of the year. Does anybody have any questions about this?
I just have
Michael?
a question for the Director of Finance. Is this threshold the correct threshold?
Yeah, that's sufficient. That's fine. I don't want any more authority.
Good.
and I have a question, Elaine Hammers. Is this cumulative or can you keep doing it in $1,000 increments? I know we intended, I don't know that I see it in the wording.
I think we've been doing a cumulative.
Okay.
So
That's a
cumulative
good
per
question. Actually,
department?
that's a good question.
Because we keep talking about it per transfer.
The
And I know,
scope says per transfer, so it's
Right.
each item.
right,
Would you mean to limit it by department or by line item, Elaine?
I think we would, frankly, I'm not really concerned about it at all because it's not been an issue, but when I look at the wording and we've functioned under it, fine for quite a while. And we've talked about whether or not to do more. I think we raised it, it had been 500. And I know how Maria would do it. But it shouldn't be specific to her. It should be specific to the position. So I would somewhere in there put cumulative per department.
I don't know if I would do cumulative. This is Marty Isaac, just so.
Yeah.
I like the idea of line item as opposed to cumulative. Some departments are so large. You could, Public Works, you're doing a lot of cleanup in there, moving things around. Line item would stop the funny business of, continuing to take money out, do $2,900 moves. If you say line item, you stop that. I think that might solve the issue.
So,
Okay.
Lainey again, where would this go in the
Yeah.
wording?
Looking.
On scope,
Yeah, under scope. Yep.
We could ask that attorney guy who's on the bottom of my screen, Mr. Shopik.
I'm on the top of my screen.
Oh, well, that's how it works. I don't know how to lock them. So you guys haven't shuffled recently, which is nice.
You people were doing a good job by yourselves. When you have a group of intelligent people who can work this through, it's not necessary for the attorney to pipe in. So unless you're
Okay.
making an egregious mistake, I'm going to let you keep going.
Well,
then
that was helpful. Thank you.
on that basis, Madam Chair, I
Yes,
would
sir.
suggest inserting the words per line item after per transfer in the first sentence.
The Director of Finance shall have authority to perform interdepartmental transfers in the amount of less than $1,000 per transfer per line item.
Mhm.
Yes.
Without prior approval of the Board of Finance.
How about, look at, for a second, Michael, look at the second sentence. Can we put it in there somewhere? In no case without exception may the Director of Finance perform interdepartment transfers in the amounts of $1,000 or more, or interdepartment transfers of any amount without prior approval.
I mean, that's your backstop.
Yeah, it's your backstop.
I actually like it in the first sentence better.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Okay, so here's what we need to do. I will take a motion to accept the policy and procedure of the Board of Finance interdepartmental transfers less than $1,000. Who wanted to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Michael. Elaine, you
I'll
want to make
second
a
it.
second?
Sure.
Elaine. Okay, and now Elaine is making a motion because it was her idea that we needed to insert that. And who wants to second that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
And all those in favor of inserting the words per line item in the first sentence under scope, so it reads, the Director of Finance shall have the authority to perform interdepartmental transfers in the amount less than $1,000 per transfer, comma, per line item without the prior approval of the Board of Finance. Signify by raising your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 0. Everybody's good. Bill, thank you for raising your hand, by the way. Awesome. All right. Anybody else have any other questions about this, or does it need to be put anywhere else in this?
No, I think we're good.
Excellent. And then I'll just take by show of hands, all those who are in agreement with the Board of Finance interdepartmental transfers less than $1,000 policy and procedures as amended, signify by raising your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Passes 6-0. And we are good. Look at that. We're actually a pretty good team. Look at that. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is accepting the Board of Finance meeting schedule for 2021. I did receive an email from Dan Shopik indicating that we had two errors to discuss. The first is that Thursday, December 6th should read Thursday, December 9th for the last meeting of the year. And there's a question that Thursday, November 11th is Veterans Day. Are the town
Closed.
the town departments are all closed on Veterans Day because our schools are open?
Town Hall, I believe, is closed. Is it
Town
not?
Hall is closed on Veterans Day.
Okay, so would we move the meeting off a week? Would we move it one day that week?
You moved it back a week or up a week, it would be Thanksgiving, I would believe. No, first Thanksgiving the following week.
Oh,
It's the
it's
following week. You could go to the 18th.
Yeah.
Is it worth it to move that to November 18th, or is it worth it to move it by one day and maybe do it the Wednesday? Can we do
If
that?
you move it by one day, you start running over departments. Well, if we're still on Zoom, it doesn't matter. But if you move it by one day, you start triggering over departments who already have the
Yes,
court chambers that day.
there could be a P and Z meeting that night if it's the third Wednesday of the month.
Okay, so then we'll make it November 18th.
That might
Probably
work.
best.
Okay. All right. And so it'll be Thursday, November 18th and Thursday, December 9th. In this discussion also, we need to set our dates for our budget vote, or not our budget hearings with the town departments. You guys want to look at the calendar? Mrs. Tesoro, when we change the timeline,
Yes,
do you have the updated timeline for the budget process in front of you?
um,
When the budget comes to you?
And the budget comes to me on the first Monday of March, I believe.
Okay,
Or I,
No,
no, the budget,
comes
yes,
to-
that's the
it
Comes
date.
to us.
Has to be
Comes to-
submitted to the Board of Finance by March 1st. I
Isn't it
sent
the
this to
first Monday
board.
in March? I didn't think it was a date. Isn't it the
Well,
first
this
Monday?
year
Well,
it's
this year-
March 1st.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
this year's
Okay.
March 1st. It's the
Okay.
first Monday of March.
Right.
And then the Board of Finance has to vote on the budget by, what did I say? By
Monday,
April-
April 12th.
Right, April 12th. I sent everyone an email. It might have been late,
Yeah.
with just a timetable of the dates.
I didn't.
Maria responded to my email that you responded to, Lainey, and she attached the dates to it.
Oh, sorry, I don't think I saw that one come in.
I think it's the chain probably starts from you.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's April 12th. So we literally have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 full weeks. Because the 12th is that Monday. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
So
have
if
6
we
weeks.
get the budget on March 2nd, on March 1st, would we want to look at like the 9th and the 16th? Tuesday, the 9th, and there was a request from Phyllis and Maria last year adamantly asking never to do it on a Monday again, which I think was a fair request. I remembered.
You're also going to be doing this on Zoom, so you might have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
And you really think we'll still be by then? I keep hoping we
I
won't,
don't
but
know.
I think you're right.
I hope not.
I think you're right.
I promise if we're live, I'll make the chocolate cake.
If not, you're gonna
Yeah,
have
I
to
will
deliver
bring-
it to
I
everyone.
think we need a
That's a lot
doggy
of
bag
chocolate cake.
delivered.
I better start baking now. All right. So why don't we set 2 meeting dates to start? If we look at the 9th and the 16th of Tuesday, the 9th, and Tuesday, the 16th, to meet by departments via Zoom. Mark?
Yeah, to Vin's point, if it's by Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
at that point, you may want to think about,
Breaking it
Sure.
into more.
yeah, I mean, because that could be a long day staring at the computer screen.
I think that
So-
there's two considerations is we need to make sure that the people who are in town hall that would need to do it during the workday are accommodated for that. And then we could break up like the outside departments that, like the commissions and things that come in. We could do those in a night meeting if you wanted, so that it wasn't interrupting the workday. How do you guys feel about that?
Lainey, you also need to take a look. Does the school have their schedule out yet? Are there any breaks in the way? I mean, I don't know what they do anymore.
Well, there would be a long weekend in February and then there would be an April break. They don't
Okay.
have a March break,
Okay, so that won't get in the way.
correct? So we'll also need our public hearings.
But Laney, also, we did 2 days with Board of Ed last time too, right? So these are the 2 days.
With the departments first. that we were talking
Well,
about.
last time we had Board of Ed came in first before we said departments. They came in at March 5th last time.
But was that an evening meeting? Those are evening meetings, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
There was,
So
yes.
if we get the budget on March 1st, we could start with Board of Education on Tuesday, the 2nd, that evening.
I have a question.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
do we need to see them in the evening, because then they drag a lot of employees in?
Mhm.
But obviously, I don't know what everyone's schedule is right now, given Zoom, working from home, whether it would interfere, if it would be easier. I can flip flop either way, so it's not for me. But I wonder about we're bringing in a lot of Board of Ed staff.
Well, I think that's part of the problem is they would be in school during the day.
Forgot about that. I kept thinking it was all administrators and it wouldn't be, student facing staff. Okay.
I don't think I think it's always been done at night. I don't
Oh,
think I've
yeah,
ever seen one.
always.
Probably though was a function that of us working, right? And we didn't
Right.
in the day. So I'm an advocate of doing it earlier as well, but however you want to manage it, Lainey, is fine.
I don't mind. We could start the meeting earlier than 7 if you wanted.
That might not be bad. Lainey, why don't you like just put out a schedule for everybody and then we can all take a look at it?
Okay.
Pick 2 nights for the Board of Ed.
Okay, so I'll start with March 2nd, working then to the 9th and the 16th. And then we'll put out the public hearings based on one evening hearing and one on a Saturday morning. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we need a motion to accept the Board of Finance 2021 meeting schedule as presented with the first.
Moved.
And Paul second.
Second.
And then we need to change the dates. I'll need a motion to change Thursday, November 11th to the 18th and Thursday, December 9th, December 6th, correct it to the 9th.
Move that.
So moved.
Elaine and Paul. And then all in favor of the meeting schedule as presented? 3, 4, 5, 6. So that'll be our meeting schedule. That'll be posted. All right. I believe that the 12-2001 resolution, that's the Board of Ed request for the Bank of America lease, has been pulled from this evening. They're waiting for more information, so we'll see that again. So we won't be discussing that on the agenda this evening. And then on the list for discussion items, we had some Board of Education follow-up and to review our year-to-date budget expenses and our revenues also. As far as Board of Education follow-up, we had sent an email after our last meeting with some questions. They sent back some answers for that. Did everybody receive those answers? And do you have any further questions that you'd like sent back in response, Marty?
Yeah, we keep dancing around this issue, and I want a very specific answer of, are they allowed to run any of the accounts into deficit at the end of the year? The operating budget, the legacy accounts, and if the answer is yes, I'd like to know exactly why they feel that, what law is saying they can do that. If the answer is not yes, or I'm done researching. I just let's finalize this issue.
Okay. Any other specific follow-up questions? I also want to thank Vin for following up with Jeff Hackett. You should have received some updated schedules concerning that lease agreement, which will come to us again. There was some question about being able to read the numbers. It was a little bit hard to read. And I'll make sure that it's attached to the agenda for the meeting when it comes before us. Does anybody have any specific questions for Vin about that? And were you able to read it once he changed the format?
No, the resolution was too low to read it. I was having the same issue that Elaine was.
Thank God, I thought it was my old eyes.
Oh, no, my old eyes too.
Okay.
Hey, sorry about that, but everything was in a different format. I pulled stuff off of different documents that were in different formats, and it was kind of hard to put them into one common format. So maybe that's what we'll do for the next time.
I was wondering if we get the budget, do we have to have our books, or can we get electronic copies, and will they be clear, or will we have this issue? I'm not really sure who I'm addressing that question to, so anybody take a shot at it.
Budget? For our budget?
Our budget and the Board of Ed budget. Do we have to take paper copies, or can we get them electronically, and will they be clear?
We could definitely give it to you electronic on the town side.
Okay.
We've posted on the website as a PDF file.
Do I guess getting it as a PDF is fine because I can mark up a PDF.
Yeah.
I have a program that'll let me put my notes in.
But I think the implication, and I'm with Elaine on this, I think, is that it would be swell if anything that was in a table of numbers could come to us as a table of numbers, like in a spreadsheet. I don't know if that's possible, but it's
Okay, so
easier to
you want
analyze.
Excel spreadsheets.
That would
with-
be swell, yeah.
Okay,
If it's
Can
not,
I-
I mean, if it's not, again, I can do what Elaine does and copy it out and put it in if I'm doing
Well,
that.
the only thing I'm thinking is we actually interfile some, let's say for the salary is actually an Excel spreadsheet.
Mhm.
But we attach it right behind the department.
Right.
So would you want PDF for the department for Munis, then you have a Excel spreadsheet and then another department PDF, or do you want all the Excels in one file?
I suspect a single PDF is going to be more straightforward, is what it sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
could also give you the Excel spreadsheet as a separate attachment. But,
Okay.
If it's not overly onerous, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. I see what's nice, like now you're giving us the year-to-date actuals and you've been sending that over sometimes as an Excel sheet. I know today it's not. Today, I think it's a PDF. What am I looking at? Well, I'm not sure what it is. I think it's a PDF.
It is a PDF. It
Oh.
basically is generated from Munis and it's dropped into Excel and then it was PDF. But if you prefer to have an Excel, it can be done as an Excel.
I do prefer it as an Excel if everyone else does to work with, but you're highlighting the items in red makes it so much easier to pick up and catch our eye. So that's a great addition to this report.
Yeah. Agree.
Moving on to that report, does anybody have any specific questions? Maria, do you want to hit the highlights?
I did have some, I gotta look it up.
Oops. I really don't have too much from last time. They're still pretty much the same expenses, you know, the elections and the town clerk. We haven't applied the grant. We just did it, actually. We applied the grant that came from the state to cover those expenses. And that's I think it's page 1. The other accounts are some of these salaries, part-time or overtime, maybe over due to the fact that some people are incurring more overtime due to the COVID. Let's see, if you look at page 4, you'll see under town hall, extraordinary item for 253,000. That has to do with the August storm, which we're submitting to FEMA for reimbursement.
Right.
I did want to say that we received from CRF 154,000 on the COVID expenses. And hopefully we will be getting the FEMA reimbursement shortly too. They accepted the claim and we're just waiting.
Maria, is that in addition to the 167 that was noted at the Board of Ed discussion a few weeks ago? There was a number of 167 thrown around, and when I talked to Jeff, he said that the Board of Ed was going to get 127 of the 167 for the use for the computers. So that's what he was given in his budget.
There's a portion for the Board of Ed. The 154 had to do with the fact that FEMA had not yet approved our file. They were still kicking it around with some questions back and forth. And we did have to file with CRF. We filed with CRF just the items that FEMA told us they were going to be denying. And CRF was going to accept those. So there's still the other piece, the 7525 that FEMA will approve, but I'm not sure what that is right now.
Vinny, I think that's a different number.
Yeah.
That was from the an ESSER grant, ESSR, I believe. That was just due for technology to the Board of Ed. I don't think that's the same as what we're speaking about.
Okay, well, I think it'd be helpful if we know where everything is coming from here.
Right.
So it's kind of like organized a bit.
Yeah, the town, the Board of Ed, the portion of the Board of Ed that the town submitted was strictly, it was mostly food service. Food, and there was some computers, but not very much. And disinfected and cleaning, that was part of that request.
That's right. The amount that the Board of Ed got for that, from that, I think was it 127,000? Because they're not getting any money under CRF for technology. So that was the total amount from that other grant that they received for technology. That's my understanding anyways, but we can certainly ask them that question.
Yeah, I think that
They-
is separate. Definitely
they
separate from
present-
the town.
They presented a number for technology. There were some computers at the bottom of the sheet that they used in that presentation. Now, maybe they didn't get that money, but my understanding, the way Jeff explained it, was that he got 127,000 of what was essentially 167,000. Whether it was from a CRF grant or for something else, I don't know. But I think, we should know where it came from and how it's being used, because that money could be used against his budget to offset some of the costs in his budget or something.
Right.
Whatever, I don't know.
Michael, you had a question?
Yeah, it's not related to technology. Is that okay?
That's all right.
Okay, so Michael Barker again. I wanted to ask that they responded, the Board of Education, TPS, responded about the free lunch program, free lunch and breakfast program, which they've been encouraging folks to go use, and indicated that some of that is to cover overhead, which makes sense. And I just wonder if they had a break-even analysis on the number of meals that they would need to adequately cover their overhead, because I didn't see that.
An
I saw that-
analysis to cover overhead.
Did they send that?
It was,
It was in that stuff Laney sent out. It was in his responses, I think.
Then I've got to look back at it more carefully
it
then.
was
Sorry.
around 3,500 meals. 50% of the kids did it. That would cover the nut.
But,
I
but
think
it was
it's
confusing, Marty, because it looked like he was saying, but they had to be paying for it. So it wasn't the free lunch. I agree with Michael. It is very confusing, and I can't figure out where they think the kids will be in to buy the meal in order to offset their expenses.
They don't have to buy it. This is government in its truest fashion. They are getting money back, and they are generating a gross margin, as I understood it, of $2.40 if a child takes both breakfast and lunch.
And
Takes-
they don't have to pay for it.
They don't have
And
to pay
even-
for it. And
Yeah,
that gross margin goes to pay for their overhead. So it is a odd situation, which is why, I was surprised, because I didn't understand why were we calling for all families to take this and not just families in need? Because the way this has been structured in our state, across the board apparently, is that they are receiving a grant and they receive, in essence, a gross margin of $2.40 if a child takes breakfast and lunch. And if they can get up to 3,500 full meals, that will take care of their full overhead expense.
And that's per day.
3,500. I don't recall that.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Because
Yeah, I guess so.
This is where it's so I'm looking at
And
it
even-
here. I see what you guys are saying. I wish it was clearer.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I
because
also
I was
wish
trying
that
to
it
figure
was
that
clear
out.
What we're
given the
actually
number-
going to clear, because we're not going to break even on this, clearly.
Well, and I know I'm not terribly up on enrollment, but that's got to be close to half the kids. And you
Correct.
don't have half the kids in every day.
Well,
Or
so there's a
maybe-
very robust program for parents to drive up and pick up lunches, and that's what they've been.
That's right.
It doesn't, they don't have to be in school that day.
Right,
It's
and even
anybody.
for,
Madam Chair.
the days that they
Madam Chair, this is Dan Shopik. If I could break in for a minute, you're going to have to identify yourself
Sorry, Dan.
for the Zoom every time you, each person who speaks. Otherwise, people who are listening or picking this up are not going to know who's speaking.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
It looks like we lost Christine just as she was explaining it. That's Michael Barker.
Christine, unmute.
Yeah, I was saying that.
That's Christine L. Eris.
Right, sorry. I know my connection's unstable. I apologize. Even when you're in school, it's free, right? So they're encouraging the kids to pick up a breakfast as they walk in the door, and their lunch is not charged for either for the days that they're in school. And the days that they're not in school, there's a very robust way for parents to pick up at the different schools.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so Michael, is that clarified for you? Do you want to know, is it per day? You want me to ask it?
Let me look at this information again, because clearly I didn't see all of it when I looked at it, and maybe I'll follow up.
Okay.
Hey, it's Mark Mascola. In the email they sent back for the response, they said it was 3,345 daily meals, which was breakfast and lunch would be their break even.
Thank you.
How many is that more than what is being distributed now?
That I don't see here.
That's the key piece of information I would like to be provided.
That is a good piece of information.
What needs to be the increase?
Well, that's not the way I would ask it. I would just say, how many short are they of the break-even point?
How short from the break even? Okay.
Laney, this is
Yes,
Marty.
sir.
If I could, the one other thing that I thought was encouraging news that they commented on in the note was I had previously been concerned about the special revenue accounts. From their data, it looked like they had a deficit of 800,000. And the good news is, according to their note, is that's really a timing issue. And so that is not a deficit. So I think where we are from a concern standpoint is there is the deficit in the lunchtime account, and a good chunk of that is attributable to the pandemic, but there was a installed deficit before all this of a couple $100,000. But the good news is the special revenue account does not appear to be in deficit, and that's encouraging.
Okay. Are we all clear on that piece with the lunch and with the Board of Ed question, the follow-up question? Okay. So we're going back to our year-to-date, Maria. Hang on, Maria. It won't let me unmute you. There you are.
Yeah, okay. No, not too much. I mentioned those two accounts, the storm and the COVID. And just like I said, the overtime, some of the overtimes are over because of the fact that, due to COVID, people are at different shifts and they have to stay later at certain times. And on page 8, you can see that COVID expenses of 110,000. That's strictly just labor. We are going to put them in a separate fund just because of the timing of the reimbursements. We did that last time. Last year, at the end of fiscal year 2020, we moved all those expenses to a separate fund. And as the reimbursements come in, they go against the fund and just they should wash itself out. I didn't see anything else that came to mind. I mean, there's a couple deficits that I need to look into. I didn't get a chance to look at them. It's probably a misquoting or something. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions.
Elaine?
Yeah, hi, Maria, it's Elaine Hammers. In the 06 account on page 12, you're showing a deficit in workers' comp Have we not budgeted that there before? Has it always been in the town workers' comp?
Yeah,
We budgeted 0, now we're charging
yes,
against it.
we always budget zero on their side. It's always at the end of the year, we basically keep track of it, just so we keep track of it, how much they spend on workers' comp, and that's just for lost time. So they pay their employees that are on workers' comp. And that's the payment to them, and then we transfer it to the main town hall account.
So eventually the town hall account absorbs it.
Yes, yes.
Um,
Technically, in my mind, they should absorb it because they should have the savings in their salaries, because these employees are not working.
Right,
They're not getting paid through their salary account.
right. But depending on who it is, they may be hiring subs.
Right.
I'm looking for the town workers' comp.
That's on page
Right.
4. Page 4.
4.
And
Yeah,
that's,
okay. So it's looking at about 28% utilization at this point.
yeah.
Okay,
Unemployment, you can look at that account,
Yeah, it's-
35,000 over, that's just gonna be over budget. We are getting reimbursements from the state now.
Okay.
From last fiscal year, because they were supposed to reimburse the towns 50% of the unemployment, and they're like 3 months behind, just sending us a bill, and then they're still waiting for the federal government to submit their reimbursement, and they take it off our bill the following month. So we'll see some reimbursements, but I don't know if that will be offset.
but wouldn't we then have corresponding savings in some of the salary accounts?
Yes, yes.
Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, hi, it's Mark Mascola. Can I just ask maybe for one of the follow-up meetings that in total we put together kind of, here's all of our expenses that we've incurred related to, the COVID and all the different line items, just a summary analysis, and then here's how much we've gotten back from the state, whether it's through unemployment or through grant or, and what's to come from FEMA. So just so we can understand what the net impact is to the budget. It's hard for me to follow line by line through here, but that just may be because
Yeah.
it's me.
Yeah, most of the expenses that were FEMA reimbursable, they were set aside in a separate account. These that I'm referring to, like the unemployment, sure, it is related to that, but it's a separate reimbursement. We can look at it, but they're not all over the accounts. There's certain accounts that have those COVID expenses. The one I mentioned is overtime, but we'll look at it. We'll see what kind of schedule I can get for you. Okay.
Marty?
Hey, Laney, thanks, Marty Isaac. Maria, one thing that would be helpful on the revenue side, we may have talked about this earlier, the idea of kind of showing us where we are this year compared to where we were last year. I'm having a hard time judging, are we in good shape or not good shape on revenue? So if we could kind of track where we are now and compare it to prior year, where we are at this point in time, to see if we're tracking. So I appreciate that we have the revenue accounts in here now. I just don't know how to, because it's not linear, so I don't know how to gauge whether we're doing fine or there's a problem. So, or if you have another way of looking at it, I'm open to it. I just don't know how to look at this and help me understand if we're in good shape or not.
I can generate a report from UNIS that it's 7 months last year and 7 months this year. I can't do that kind of reporting. No, I can do that same report that I provided with the budget, where I have actuals last year, budget, and I could project, this is the actuals I project till the end of the year. I can do that report.
So, okay, so you can project where we're going to be at the end of the year?
Well, yeah. This year's a little unusual. I doubt I can do a good job on that this year, but normally I could project.
I guess the earlier we can understand where we have a problem, the better, right? So If whatever you can do to kind of help us answer that question. I don't know what you're capable of producing. I just know when I look at this report, it's not particularly helpful to understand if we're
No.
doing good or bad on revenue.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's a question.
Elaine?
Yeah, Maria, excuse me, Elaine Hammers. Eunice won't let you run a report like as of 7 months into the last fiscal year, once it's past that point in time.
It's very difficult to get those reports. It will give me, I'm gonna try, but
Well,
it's
this
been
revenue-
difficult to do
Yeah.
those.
The revenue report we have, I agree with Marty. I'm looking at it and glazing over.
Right,
And
right. It's not used, no. it
It's not,
doesn't-
no one ever said Munis was user friendly. I think your suggestion of doing what you give us at budget time would be more helpful for what Marty and I think most of the board would like to see. I think taking a shot at that would be better.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we have one final item. That's the meeting minutes from our November 12th meeting. They're attached. I'll take a motion to accept those minutes.
Move, we accept the minutes.
Second.
And Paul. Good combo this evening. Very good teamwork. All right, anybody have any issues with the minutes that you see? Okay. I don't see any issues. Anybody? All those in favor of accepting the Board of Finance minutes from our November 12th meeting as presented, signify by raising your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that passes 6-0. Pretty good. And that is all, unless anybody has anything else to discuss. That takes us to the end of our meeting, and I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
And Elaine.
stick together tonight, Paul.
You got it.
All right, I'll go with that one by unanimous consent. I'm going to take a page from Mary Beth on that. If anybody doesn't have anything else, have a great night.
Have a happy holidays, everyone. Happy
Yeah, Merry
Hanukkah, Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
Merry
Happy New
Christmas,
Year.
happy
We'll all
holidays,
see you
everybody.
next year.
Yeah. Next
Happy
year.
holidays, everyone.
Be safe.
Take care.